Alrighty, we are back another week, another show to get you in the know. Week 17, Saints against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I feel like I've said this every week for the past 3 weeks. It's a win to get in situation, and now it's actually a win to get in situation. If the Saints drop this game, playoff hopes are officially crushed, qualmed, over, done. And may provide some relief for Saints fans if that happens. So we have stop having this kind of false hope thing that's going on week after week. But either way, Saints at Tampa, and then next week we return to the Dome to face the Falcons. So two very important games for the Saints back to back. But obviously we have to get through Tampa first. Going into week 17, had some news come out this morning that I think we already kind of knew. We covered it throughout the week that Ian Rapport originally said that Dennis Allen's in a good place right now to return as the Saints head coach. Saints fans are pretty upset about that. But either way, kind of focus on this game at hand, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How you feeling going into it?
Uh, it's hard to gauge because you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are at home. I mean, they win, they clinch the division. They have something to play for. But at the same time, the Saints still also have something to play for. They need some help, but they still have a shot at making the division, at winning the division and claiming the fourth seed. So I mean, I don't expect the Saints to come down into Tampa and just lay down for anybody. We've seen it week in and week out that they are going to fight to the very end. Um, it's just going to be who's more desperate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. Desperate is probably the right word for both teams right now because if the Saints win, both teams are going to sit at 500, which is I think pretty crazy considering how tight the NFC South has been. It feels like all teams should be 8-8, not just the Saints and the Buccaneers. If the Saints win today, the Falcons are pretty close to being 8-8. I don't know their exact record off the top of my head. I think they're in the same situation. If they win today, they're 8-8 as well. But yeah, I agree there. I think if the Saints team, not Dennis Allen, not the coaching staff, if the Saints team wants to show that Dennis Allen is their guy, right? They want him to be the head coach. I think this is the game that we need to see that fire that we saw from Demario Davis against the Giants 2 weeks ago, where he came out and he set the tone early. We can't have this late start, and it needs to come from everybody, right? Not just the defense. It needs to just all around, start to finish, needs to feel like one of those complete games because even though it was against the Giants, that was the most complete game that we had. And if the Saints could put together two or three more performances like that, this team's probably sitting at 12-5, and we're having a very different discussion, but we've just dropped some games that we should have had. But either way, we'll kind of hop into the, just more specifics on the game as far as the, current situation. Ryan Ramczyk went to the injured reserve, so we lost a tackle there. Lonnie Johnson, again, I think with that knee injury, I'm kind of shocked he's not on IR.
Right.
Unless they're thinking he can come back if the playoffs happen, because he looked like he was in a lot of pain, and it didn't really look like a severe contact injury, which is always a concern when you're dealing with something that's not contact and it's a knee. Any lower extremity is pretty un- unlikely that it's a return to this season kind of thing situation. Kendre Miller once again doesn't look like he's playing. He's questionable, limited participant all week. Olave, he was limited participant all week as well, but I have a lot of faith that that guy plays most times than not. Like he was back like 1 week after that concussion that looked like it might put him out for a couple of weeks. Um, and then Alvin and Lou Headley both questionable, but I saw word that Alvin is going to play. So a couple other guys, Cam Gordon, Eric McCoy, but again unspecified going into the game. So looks like game time decisions, and looks like they should be good to go. On the other side of the ball, lots of outs for Tampa: Shaquille Barrett, Carlton Davis, Mike Green, Raheem Jarrett, and Keith, and then Chris Godwin. Looks like he is going to play after going. Did not practice and then full participant the last day for Friday. But outside of that, we'll kind of look into the NFC South. Again, the only thing that's important is if we win, right? Obviously, Atlanta losing would give us a little bit of a comfort tomorrow, or not tomorrow, next week going into that game. But Atlanta's facing Chicago. Something Justin Fields to the Saints rumors, right? Maybe he'll do us a favor there before he even comes this way. And then Carolina, doesn't really matter at this point for Carolina, but they are playing Jacksonville.
Carolina does not matter until next week after we beat the Bucs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So those are the two divisional matchups. Again, they don't really matter right now because we just have to beat the Bucs. That's step number one. We can't rely on anyone else but ourselves this week. I said that we shouldn't rely on anybody else the last couple of weeks when we've dropped these games that we should have had, but truly, it's just us, right? There's no one else that can win, lose, tie, score this many points, and give the Saints a playoff chance. The only one that can do it is us right now. So, speaking on the Saints' playoff hopes and chances, Detroit got robbed last night. And I've been kind of a quiet Detroit fan all year because I've said before they're almost like the second chance Saints, the guys that they got over there. Not that the Saints necessarily gave up on all those guys, but those guys went there to kind of build their own thing with Aaron Glenn, Dan Campbell. CD's over there now, someone that they know. You have Anzalone playing some of the best football he's probably ever played in his life over there. Just a lot of Saints guys that are over there, really balling out and having a good time. And Detroit looks really good this year. But it was a little bit of like a harmony that had happened to a team that Jared Goff was on, right? Because that was like the guy who it happened to us, and our quarterback had to stand there and watch that happen. So, still hope great things for Detroit. But it was kind of nice to, a little bit tone deaf comments from Jared Goff with, I know he's not going to talk about the no call in New Orleans, right? But the comments still were a little tone deaf from him. Like, I've never felt this way before. Well, welcome to the call, buddy. We know exactly how it feels because you went to that conference game and we didn't, and we should have been there. But
it's obviously it's a tough game for Detroit to lose. It really puts the Cowboys in a good position for going into the last week of the season. It just hurts for them to take that loss in that way. But I mean, like you said, you can't really take anything away from the Lions this season. First divisional championship in 30 plus years. That's insane. They've done that. That's history in the making.
Yep, absolutely. And speaking of history in the making, another game that already happened, Cleveland, 37-20. Joe Flacco took a year and a half off and came back looking like the Joe Flacco who won a Super Bowl. That guy, I almost think that you look at the quarterbacks that are kind of getting the cold shoulder in the league right now, and they're these middle-aged guys. Our guy, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, got paid a lot of money to come in and play essentially mediocre football, right, is what's kind of happening. Meanwhile, Joe Flacco takes a year and a half off and comes back like a brand new man. So maybe there's something to be said about that. Yeah, exactly. Like maybe there's something to be said about that. Maybe these guys should take like a year off at this point in their career, reevaluate, come back and ball out, give their body a little time to bounce back and recover. I don't know. But could have been a fluke as well, right? Could have just been one of those games where, everybody, you go on the basketball court, you can't miss sometimes, but other days you go in there and you play like yourself.
It's crazy though, because Joe Flacco's had 4 or 5 of those kind of games now.
Right, so, exactly. Yeah, it almost reminds me of when Michael Vick was bouncing around from team to team, and he came out and he would just ball out for 2 games in a row when somebody was hurt, but then he wouldn't be the starter, and it's like, what's going on? Why is this guy he's obviously better than your quarterback that you have right now, but more issues with Mike Vick than Joe Flacco taking a year off, but nonetheless, really not a whole lot of you guys, Miami and Baltimore, that should be an interesting matchup. Cincinnati and Kansas City could have been an interesting matchup if you have Joey B back there, but he's not back yet. And then San Fran and Washington, I think, should be a relatively interesting game. I know that um, I'm drawing a blank right now. Sam Howell, I think in a way, he kind of reminds me of like the Brock Purdy story, but just without the Mr. Irrelevant. And he's had ups and downs, unlike Brock Purdy. It's feel like Brock Purdy's just been up the whole time. But Sam Howell, I think, just came out of nowhere, playing really good football, got benched, and now he's back just 1 week later. So I hope he kind of finds a way to stay in that starting position, because he's had some games where he's 4 touchdowns, 300 yards, looks like a professional quarterback. And I think the league needs more quarterbacks at this point, right? Like, it feels like you have the top 5 guys, and then everyone else is just kind of there in the league right now. Whereas when Drew Brees was playing at his top of his prime, you had 5 other guys who were doing it just like him. Tom Brady, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, like, and that's just off the top of my head. You can go down the list and find even more guys who were playing at a high level at that time. You had backups who could come in and throw for 300 yards like nobody's business. So the league needs more quarterbacks. So that's going to be fun to see. But we'll hop back into Saints talk for a little while here. Kind of wrap it up with the anytime touchdown scores for Saints game. Who do you like as the anytime touchdown scorer?
I want to see a touchdown to a tight end. I think whether it be Juwan or Jimmy, I think that would be a strong anytime touchdown contender, because with Alvin, obviously he will be able to go. I don't know if I'm confident with him going against the Bucs stout front seven.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Alvin is a little bit more of like getting space guy. So you really got to be creative, especially, with him being sick. You don't know how much gas he's going to have in the tank. So we'll see how that goes. I definitely like the tight end one. It feels like one that should happen every week with the talent that we have at the tight end position, and Foster Moreau, Jimmy Graham, and Juwan Johnson. All those guys are pretty much receivers who can block a little bit. I'm going to go in a direction that it feels like an unsafe pick, but at the same time, I like the way we play divisional games for defense all the time. I'm going to go defensive touchdown. I think Baker Mayfield's the guy to give you a pick six. He's bold in his passing, right? Kind of like Brett Favre. He wants to get the ball into spaces that I'm not saying he's Brett Favre. I want to clear that completely up. Not Brett Favre at all. However, he's not afraid to put the ball in bad situations for good things to happen.
Right.
And I think the Saints defense can take advantage of that. So it feels like for the plus
I
odds.
can kind of piggyback on top of that, because I personally believe Alontae Taylor, coming off of his binging, he's going to be playing aggressive, but he's also going to be playing clean. I expect him to be attacked, whether it be through Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. But I think Alontae Taylor is going to show up. So he could be that guy.
Yeah, no, and really that's kind of who I had in mind for it too, just purely because, kind of like you're saying, he coming off the benching. You got to know that other teams, other offensive coordinators, when they see a guy get benched and then they face him the next week, they're going to go after him. They're going to try and mess with his confidence even more. And if they don't, I just don't think they're very good coaches. Like, those are the guys that you want to target him a couple of times. If he steps up, find someone else. But to start the game, go after him. Like, see if he's bouncing back the way he wants to say he's bouncing back. So, but yeah, so we got a tight end of any sort, and then defensive touchdown around the league. I'll just kind of throw out some names for you if you want to pick one. We got Jalen Hurts at negative 200. That feels like awful odds, because I know he gets them a lot, but it doesn't feel worth it at minus money. Saquon Barkley plus 100, a Chain at plus 100, Kelsey at plus 110. I don't know what's going on with Kelsey. I feel like that shouldn't be plus 110. Cortland Sutton, backup quarterback, probably goes to a guy like Cortland Sutton.
I was on a Tua touchdown against the Ravens D.
Who'd you say, Tua?
Tua? That feels like an interesting one.
So anytime touchdown scorer has to be like a rusher receiving touchdown, right?
Yeah.
So he's at plus 1,400 right now. Is he possibly coming off the injury report, like questionable to play, maybe? Because that's pretty crazy.
It's really good odds. I mean, I'd take it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He'll be out there for Sundays. Yeah. So, I mean, I know he was on the injury because he's my fantasy quarterback. So, um, yeah, that's pretty crazy. Plus 1,400. Maybe they're thinking since he's coming off injury, he's not going to be running a lot. But, I mean, yeah, plus 1,400. Wow. Okay, that's
It's
interesting.
hard to pass up 1,400.
Yeah, especially on a guy who's as athletic as Tua, you know? Uh, yeah. So, yeah, that's a good one too. It kind of threw me off. Wasn't even really. I was not expecting to see plus 1,400 there. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, so going back to that, I like George Kittle. He's at plus 160. Commanders defense isn't necessarily bad, right? But they're 4-11. What are they really paying for right now? And I mean, Kittle is just a guy who it feels like any given play he could find the end zone with how athletic and quick he is at the tight end position. So yeah, Kittle at plus 160. So we got Saints tight end and Tua rushing or receiving touchdown for you for anytime touchdown score. We got Saints defense and George Kittle for me over here. So yeah, those should be good. I honestly might like just like after we get off this, just go put $5 on that plus 1,400. You know, like that's pretty insane. But either way, we'll kind of wrap this up again. Week 17, Saints at Tampa should be a good game. Like you said, both teams are pretty desperate. Yeah, Saints hopefully are more desperate than the Bucs. So, but yeah, this has been another week, another post game show to get you in the know. We will pregame show to get you in the know. We will be back for the post game show relatively close after the Saints game. We typically shoot for 3:30, but if the Saints game ends at 2:45, we'll move it up. If the Saints game goes to overtime, we'll move it back. However, we got to work it. We'll work it. So we will see you guys later. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and be on the lookout for more content from the know.
Who that?